Chapter 6. Archetypes of the Unknown. Across every continent, in every culture, people have reported mysterious creatures that science can't catalog. Yet, intriguingly, these creatures often fall into a few repeating types, as if drawn from a shared well of images and symbols. It's as though humanity keeps rediscovering the same cast of mysterious characters dressed in local costumes. Consider one of the most pervasive archetypes, the wild humanoid. In North America, he's known as Bigfoot or Sasquatch, the towering, shaggy ape man of the forests, leaving huge human-like footprints and an uncanny smell in his wake. In the Himalayas of Nepal and Tibet, there's the Yeti, essentially a cold-weather Bigfoot, white-furred and roaming the snowfields. Australia's Aboriginal traditions speak of the Yowie, a similar tall, hairy being haunting the outback. Southeast Asia has reports of a smaller ape-like hominid called the orang pendek, and Singapore folklore tells of the Bukit Timah monkey man, roughly human-like figures darting through jungle fringes. Native peoples of the Pacific Northwest had stories of the Tsemekwes. Russian folklore has the Almasty, a wild man of the woods. The names differ, but the image is strikingly consistent. A bipedal man of the wild, muscular, hairy, half animal and half human. How is it that an Australian rancher, a Himalayan Sherpa, and a Florida swamp guide can describe such similar beings without ever having met? One could argue it's simply that the notion of a big ape in the woods isn't far-fetched given our evolutionary history. Perhaps there really were, or are, remnants of other hominid species out there, or people are misidentifying bears and such. Yet, despite decades of searching, no bodies or definitive physical specimens have been found. The reports persist instead as sightings, sounds, and footprints. Footprints, indeed, are a common thread. Bigfoot enthusiasts have cast enormous tracks with dermal ridges, skin patterns, claiming they're too detailed to be hoaxes. And of course, the most famous Bigfoot evidence is that grainy 1967 Patterson-Gimlin film showing what appears to be a large, long-armed female primate striding along a creek in Northern California. Experts still debate that footage. Some say the creature's gait and muscle movement under the fur couldn't have been a man in a suit. Others remain unconvinced. Over 50 years later, we still have no conclusive proof. No skeleton, no capture, just footprints, some films and photos, and hundreds of eyewitness accounts, the echoes of a maybe creature. And yet, the archetype feels deeply familiar, almost ancient. It's as if the idea of the wild man has been with us since we first huddled around campfires at the forest's edge. A shadow lurking just beyond the light. Another recurring archetype swims in our waters, the water monster. The quintessential example is Nessie, the Loch Ness monster of Scotland. Descriptions vary, but the classic vision is of a creature with a long neck and one or more humps rising above the water, reminiscent of a plesiosaur, a dinosaur-era marine reptile thought long extinct. Sightings of something strange in Loch Ness go back to the 1930s in modern lore, and even earlier in local legend. And the famous 1934 surgeon's photograph of Nessie, later exposed as a hoax, nonetheless cemented the popular image of a serpentine head and neck peeking from the lake. Since then, countless eyewitnesses claim to have seen something large and animate in Loch Ness. Expeditions have probed its depths with sonar and submersibles. Sometimes they pick up massive moving shapes they can't explain. Often they find nothing. The story repeats globally. Canada's Okanagan Lake has Ogopogo, with indigenous lore predating the modern reports. In the U.S., Lake Champlain has Champ. Lake Tahoe has Tahoe Tessie. In Africa's Congo, local legends of Mokelembembe, a river-dwelling blocked river beast, led Western explorers on fruitless searches for a living dinosaur. Again, no hard evidence, yet the reports are remarkably consistent. Multiple witnesses see multi-humped shapes gliding through water or large, shadowy forms on sonar. The lakes in question are often deep, dark, and murky, with plenty of room for imaginations and perhaps hidden beasts to roam. Biologists point out the implausibility of a breeding population of giant creatures in each of these lakes, evading detection for centuries. And yet, the legends endure. One wonders if these lake monsters are, as one writer suggested, like ghosts of prehistoric memory, images of plesiosaurs swimming in our collective unconscious. It's as though humanity retains a latent mental image of the primeval seas and their titans, and occasionally, under the right conditions of expectation and suggestion, that image is projected onto the waves for people to see. This notion of a collective memory brings to mind a speculative idea from the fringes of biology, morphic resonance. Biologist Rupert Sheldrake proposed that nature has a kind of memory, that once something happens a number of times, it creates a field of information that future occurrences can draw upon. In his view, natural systems inherit a collective memory from all previous things of their kind, though controversial and deemed unproven by mainstream science. Morphic resonance offers a poetic insight. Perhaps each time people imagine or report a monster like Nessie, it strengthens a sort of pattern in a collective field, making it easier for others to see the same form thereafter. Under this lens, the archetypes we're discussing could have not just psychological reality, but a kind of formative reality, a template in a morphic field that occasionally manifests. In simpler terms, once the idea of a long-necked lake beast exists, it might echo through minds and even through reality itself, inducing new sightings as the pattern resonates. The lake monster thus becomes an archetype so strong that it gains a tenuous foothold in the physical world, a ghost of prehistoric memory indeed, one we conjure into semi-being with our collective will and memory. We also have flying creatures in the menagerie of the unknown, not just Mothman and the Jersey Devil, but giant birds and dragon-like beings. Native American lore speaks of thunderbirds, enormous birds capable of creating thunderclaps with their wings. Modern reports occasionally surface of giant bird-like creatures with wingspans far exceeding any known eagle in various parts of America. In the 1970s, there were reports of a giant bird in Illinois and Texas, dubbed Big Bird in headlines. One witness even claimed a huge bird tried to carry off his child, though thankfully failed. Could these be misidentified condors or just tall tales? Possibly. But again, the archetype is ancient and global. Think of dragons in European and Asian lore, or the winged serpents of Mesoamerican myth. Cultures separated by oceans share the image of a great flying reptile. Modern cryptid lore has the Kongamado of Africa, a pterodactyl-like flyer reported in Zambia, and occasional reports of pterosaur-like creatures in places as far-flung as Papua New Guinea, and even the American Southwest. While it's easy to attribute some of these to hoaxes or mistaken sightings of large bats or birds, it's curious how persistent the dragon bat archetype is. From the Welsh dragon on flags to the Loveland frogman, a weird Ohio legend of a humanoid frog with a wand. Yes, really. Winged and scaly things populate our collective imagination. Then there are phantom felines. For instance, the numerous reports in the UK of big black cats, panther-like animals, roaming the countryside where no wild panthers exist. Every year, Brits report seeing the beast of Bodmin or other such feline ghosts. Sometimes paw prints are found, sometimes livestock are mysteriously killed, but no captures occur, and skeptics suspect escaped exotic pets or overactive imaginations. Still, the British big cat phenomenon persists, essentially a little archetype. The predator, lurking just beyond the edge of civilization, a throwback to when Europe had lions or leopards. Werewolf-like creatures form another group. For example, Wisconsin's Beast of Bray Road in the late 1980s and early 90s, where multiple witnesses described a hairy biped that looked like a wolf walking upright. It caused a local frenzy and earned a place in cryptid lore, some speculating it was a misidentified bear, others that it was something truly uncanny. The archetype here blends the wild man with the demonic canine, hearkening to medieval werewolf trials and even older myths of shapeshifters. We also encounter small humanoids, goblins, elves, little folk. In 1977, in Dover, Massachusetts, a few teenagers encountered a strange creature now known as the Dover Demon, a small, pale, spindly being with a large head and glowing eyes, seen creeping along stone walls and roadsides. It was sighted over 2 nights and never again. But those who saw it were deeply shaken. This isolated case mirrors older fairy folklore, minus the glamour. The demon was more creepy than enchanting. Around the world, stories of little people abound, from leprechauns in Ireland to duende in Latin America. Most are in the realm of folklore, yet occasionally someone will swear they saw a tiny humanoid figure in the woods or their garden. Are these mere cultural leftovers, hallucinations, or could collective belief in hidden little folk sometimes project into a momentary sighting? This has been an excerpt from Quantum Cryptids by Sam Elliott. Check out Elliott's new book, Paranormal Imprints, for an in-depth look into how some ghosts leave a mark on reality. Paranormal Imprints by Sam Elliott is available now.